This meeting is called to order. It's a work session, Tuesday, June 6th at 1 p.m. in the Board of Supervisors hearing room at 1415 Melody Lane, Building G, Bisbee, Arizona. Any item on this agenda is open for discussion. We will begin with the roll call. It's District 1.
Crosby's here.
District 2.
Supervisor English is
And
present.
District 3, I'm representing that, Supervisor Judd. Members of the public may also attend this meeting via Microsoft Teams computer or mobile app or via phone by calling 602-609-7513 or 888-680-6714. Conference ID 126-452-77#. If you have trouble accessing this meeting remotely, call 520-432-9200 for direction. Work sessions are a time for county staff to inform and discuss agenda items with the Board of Supervisors, and public comments will not be taken. As far as introductions, there are plenty of introductions to be made today. What we usually do is when you begin to speak, you will tell us who you are and who you represent and maybe a little bit about yourself. In your case, some of you will need to kind of describe where you come from and what you're doing. So today I will make the first introduction. Our item to discuss is presentation discussion with Arizona Department of Environmental Quality and what is PER and PFAS, and what is ADEQ doing in Cochise County. So you are Paula Panzino?
I am.
And she's the Chief Science Officer for ADEQ, and Jennifer Botsford, Environmental Health Services Chief for ADHS. And you'll speak and tell us who you are, but it's quite an honor to have you all here with us. Thank you for coming today and helping us understand this. This is something that I've heard about nationally, and we hear in the emails. We do want to know, and we want to be able to share this with the public. So thank you for being here today.
You're very welcome. ADEQ is very happy to be here to share this information with you. I know that PFAS has been in the news and it can be very confusing. There's a lot of information out there from very different sources, and so we're happy to share what we know.
Thank you. It's time for you to make your presentation. So
very good. So hello, I am Paula Panzino. I'm the Chief Science Officer for ADEQ. I'm happy to be here before you, the Board of Supervisors. Thank you for having us. I am accompanied by many of my team members. As Chief Science Officer, I serve as the Technical Excellence Lead for the Arizona Department of Environmental Quality. I've been with the agency for a little over 5 years now. My previous background is as a geologist and environmental engineer. So I worked in consulting for 25 years. I'm very, very happy to have joined public service. I'd like to introduce my team members. I don't know if you want to come up and introduce yourselves, Laura and Jennifer. Come on.
Good afternoon. Thank you for having us. I am Laura Carasona. I'm the Safe Drinking Water Section Manager, and I have about 25 years of different experience in water resources, including water quality. Good.
Hi, I'm Jennifer Botsford. I work at the Arizona Department of Health Services. I've been there since 2005 when I started my career in public health. I started in the environmental toxicology program, and I was there for about 10 years. And then I went to the state lab and was the program director for the Arizona Biomedical Research Center for 5 years. And I came back to environmental health 2 years ago. And so I'm here to answer any of your questions around health and PFAS.
Thank you.
So we have our A-team here with us today. What we've done is we've tried to compile some very introductory information about PFAS in this video presentation. The slides were shared with you about a week ago, and the content is based on the slides, but we've had time since then to turn it into a video. So I think the video has a lot of great basic information, and what we're going to do is show that video, and then we have a fact sheet that accompanies the video that is Cochise County specific. So what we've tried to do is include in that fact sheet all of the activities that ADEQ is conducting in Cochise County. Why we are doing that is to give you an idea of all of the PFAS-related activities that ADEQ is pursuing. So after the video, I will review the fact sheet with you, and then it would be wonderful to be able to answer questions after that.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. So if you would cue the video, that would be wonderful.
PFAS is a term for a group of chemicals that many Arizona residents are likely to hear more about in the coming years. We at ADEQ would like to provide you with a brief introduction of PFAS in Arizona so you can understand what PFAS are, what ADEQ is doing to address these chemicals in our environment, and what steps to take now to protect your health. First, it's important to understand some basic facts about PFAS. Per- and polyfluoroalkyl substances, or PFAS, are a large family of man-made chemicals that have been in use since the 1940s. PFAS have unique physical and chemical properties that make them very useful for a wide range of applications, most notably stain and water resistance. But these same properties can make them highly stable and resistant to degradation in the environment, earning them the nickname forever chemicals. Because the length of their carbon-fluorine tail and the structure of their functional head can vary, thousands of unique PFAS molecules are possible. Some PFAS have been more commonly manufactured than others, including two of the most widely used and studied PFAS molecules, PFOA and PFOS. Scientific studies have shown that exposure to some PFAS may be linked to harmful health effects in humans and animals. Depending on how much PFAS someone is exposed to and for how long, certain PFAS can have potential harmful effects. For example, increasing the chance of getting some cancers, increasing cholesterol levels, and affecting reproductive health and child development. Because of their unique and beneficial properties, PFAS have been incorporated into many common consumer products, including carpets, furnishings, food packaging, cosmetics, clothing, cookware, and many others. In some cases, consumers can choose to limit their exposure to PFAS, for example, by avoiding products labeled as water or stain resistant, avoiding food in contact with grease-proof packaging, and avoiding personal care products with fluorinated ingredients on the label. Drinking PFAS-contaminated water is another potential source of exposure, but one that for many is not easily avoided through personal choice alone. However, in most cases, exposure to contaminated drinking water can be eliminated through testing, regulation, and treatment, something we'll discuss more in just a bit. The life cycle of PFAS starts when they are first manufactured by industry. Although Arizona has not historically been home to any PFAS manufacturers, these chemicals can make their way to our state through the purchase of consumer products, the use of firefighting foams, and as raw materials used in the production of other products. People may be exposed directly from using these products, but as they are used or thrown away, they also enter our landfills and our wastewater treatment plants, and in turn can be released into the environment where they can accumulate and do not easily break down. From there, they may end up in our food or our drinking water. With PFAS so common in the world today, it's not surprising that we find these chemicals in our bodies as well. The CDC has measured PFAS in the U.S. population since 1999 and has found that PFAS are present in the blood of 99% of Americans. However, since 2002, the production and use of two of the most common PFAS, PFOA and PFOS, has declined, and researchers have seen a corresponding decline in blood levels. In the case of PFOS, by more than 85%. Therefore, despite their forever chemical nickname, we can see that reducing exposure to these chemicals can have a positive impact on the levels in our bodies. PFAS are not currently regulated at the national level or in Arizona. The U.S. Environmental Protection Agency first released provisional PFAS health advisories in 2009, which defined advisory levels for PFOA and PFOS. Since that time, the advisory levels have been revised lower, first in 2016 and again in 2022, and were expanded to include additional compounds, PFBS and Gen X chemicals. Health advisories are not legally enforceable. They identify the concentration of a contaminant in drinking water at which adverse health effects are not anticipated to occur over a lifetime. In March 2023, EPA took the next step. After many years of study and recent research, EPA proposed a national primary drinking water regulation. The proposed regulation would create a maximum contaminant level, or MCL, for 6 common PFAS. An MCL is the maximum concentration of a contaminant allowed in drinking water that can be delivered by a public water system. EPA has proposed to regulate PFOA and PFOS at a level of 4 parts per trillion, while 4 other PFAS are proposed to be regulated as a mixture using a standard calculation called a hazard index. These proposed MCLs were developed by EPA to account for chronic exposures to low levels of PFAS over time. At concentrations typically found in drinking water, they are not dangerous in the same way as acute water contaminants like E. coli, which may be dangerous if consumed even once. It may be helpful to understand the unit of measure that's being used by EPA for the proposed regulation. 1 part per trillion is equivalent to a single drop of water in 20 Olympic-sized swimming pools. So this hopefully gives you an idea of just how small these numbers really are and also how cautious EPA is being about the long-term risks associated with exposure to PFAS in our drinking water. ADEQ is closely following PFAS developments at the federal level, and the EPA has developed a roadmap that lays out their commitment to take specific actions. It's expected that EPA will finalize the proposed drinking water regulation within the next year. However, implementation of the final rule will occur 3 years later, giving states and water providers the time needed to address contamination. In addition to drinking water regulations, EPA has proposed designating certain PFAS as hazardous substances, which would allow the state and federal government to hold polluters accountable. And EPA has also proposed aquatic life standards to help protect wildlife in our streams and rivers. These are all just a few of the many federal PFAS developments that are expected over the next several years. So what is ADEQ doing about PFAS in Arizona? ADEQ is taking several steps to protect public health and help our state prepare for future EPA actions. Beginning in 2018, ADEQ conducted targeted screening efforts to understand the scope of PFAS impacts in Arizona. This testing included drinking water, groundwater, wastewater, and biosolids. In 2023, we began a comprehensive PFAS testing program to make sure that all of Arizona's regulated drinking water systems are sampled for PFAS in advance of federal regulations. If PFAS are detected, we can begin working right away with affected water providers to collect more data, find solutions, and identify funding to reduce exposure to PFAS. We'll have more details on this important program in just a moment. While we're actively working to protect drinking water, we're also trying to identify the most effective ways to prevent more PFAS from entering our environment. ADEQ recently piloted a program to help Arizona fire departments stop their use of PFAS-containing aqueous film-forming foams known as AFFF. The program was allocated $395,000 during fiscal year 2023, which has allowed us to work with 40 fire departments throughout the state to replace and properly dispose of almost 6,000 gallons of AFFF to date.
We had 275 gallons that we no longer were utilizing because of the risk. And the truck easily pulled up, loaded it, and unloaded that F500 that we'll now be able to distribute to our trucks.
Being involved in this program was so essential and critical for us to get rid of these chemicals.
As someone who's been in the fire service for over 20 years and have watched friends be diagnosed with cancer, knowing that there's people out there that care enough to replace these foams and anything that we're determining as a cancer-causing agent, that being on top of mind for them, it just means a lot.
As mentioned earlier, ADEQ is currently engaged in a comprehensive statewide effort to ensure that all regulated water systems are tested for PFAS. EPA is currently requiring that systems serving 3,300 customers or more sample their drinking water for PFAS. However, in the state of Arizona, the majority of systems serve fewer than 3,300 people and will not be sampled under the EPA program. Therefore, ADEQ has committed to using $3 million of federal Safe Drinking Water Act funds to sample these small water systems and help ensure that all regulated water systems in Arizona will be tested. Results are generally provided to water systems within 2 to 4 weeks of sampling and are posted to the ADEQ website. If PFAS are detected, ADEQ provides the system with a PFAS toolkit specially developed to help water systems meet the challenges this may cause. The toolkit includes information on funding, customer communication, and potential next steps. Systems are asked to follow EPA recommendations to inform their customers of the results. Our program to test small drinking water systems has a number of benefits for the systems and their customers. First, it provides PFAS sampling to systems at no charge, potentially saving them thousands of dollars. These systems can then be notified of PFAS detections much earlier than if they wait until they are required to sample under forthcoming federal regulations. For those systems with PFAS concentrations higher than the EPA's proposed limits, they can get a head start planning for expanded testing, evaluating potential solutions, and applying for federal funding if necessary. With many systems across the nation facing similar challenges, it's important that Arizona's drinking water providers begin planning to meet the new rules as soon as possible. So what can you do if PFAS is detected in your drinking water? If your water is confirmed to contain PFAS, in many cases, action is not necessary immediately. You can choose to reduce your exposure as soon as possible by not using untreated water for activities like drinking, cooking, washing produce, brushing teeth, or preparing formula. However, it's generally safe to continue using untreated water for activities like washing dishes, showering, laundry, swimming, and watering your yard. If you have concerns about PFAS in your water, there are a number of at-home treatments available, such as activated carbon and reverse osmosis. You can check sources such as the NSF or your local filter installer for more information on effective treatment systems for your home. It should be noted that boiling water will not remove PFAS, and bottled water providers are not required to test for PFAS, so use caution if you choose to drink bottled water. PFAS can be a complicated topic, and this presentation is meant only as a brief introduction. If you'd like to learn more about PFAS in Arizona, please visit our My Community webpage. There you can find a map displaying the results of statewide PFAS screening and links to other helpful resources. If you'd like to talk with someone directly, we have staff available to speak with you and answer any questions you might have. Thank you for listening.
Thank you for taking the time to watch the video. I'd like to take questions now before we go over the fact sheet. Does anything come to mind? Does anybody have any questions? Yes,
Yeah.
sir.
I remember there was a statistic for EPA regulations for companies, and it was greater than 3,300, but I can't remember what it was, 3,300 customers, people, or what?
So the 3,300 is, Laura, it's people, yes.
Okay, thank you. Then what if they replace the old style fire foam? Where does the old style fire foam go?
Currently, we're sending it to a hazardous waste landfill.
I see.
Go ahead.
That was partially one of my questions, is that if you choose as a homeowner to use some kind of a filter that supposedly takes it out of the water system, how do you dispose of it? And is it necessary to tell the landfill attendant that it is hazardous waste?
Right now, there are no prohibitions on disposal of the treatment media, so you can dispose of it in your trash.
And it goes directly to the landfill?
Yes.
So initially when I heard about PFAS, it was all with firefighting. I learned that it's in just all kinds of things that we use. Is it a bigger problem where they have used the firefighting foam and chemicals than in the previous, when I heard of it first, it was because they were close to a military reservation where they were using it, or, a catastrophic fire. And so that was then suddenly in the environment, and it was something they were worried about cleaning up. But it sounds like we could possibly all have issues with it. So what would be our role as a county? I mean, I guess you'll kind of get into that, and you asked the question right on the screen. Should we be worried about it as far as disposal? I mean, our environmental, I mean, he's right here, Mr. Haverty, we have proper disposal of the trash in our county. We have cells, and it keeps it out of the environment. So we shouldn't have to worry about what goes into those, as mentioned by Supervisor English, into that properly prepared cell in our landfill, right? That would protect the environment from the PFAS.
In general, yes. It depends on what class of a landfill you have. And it does depend on whether or not your landfill is lined,
Mhm.
and the condition of your liner, right? So
It is.
yeah,
We do
that's
that.
good.
Okay, so as far as that obligation, we've pretty much got that covered. So
I have another question that you may or may not be able to answer, and that is, it's recently been brought to the attention of some of our water users in Cochise County that they have these the PFAS in their drinking water. And I don't know if it told them how many parts per trillion or what the significance was, but if an individual said, I want to do something, for my family, do you have any idea of a cost range that a family might have to consider in order to be able to take it just out of their drinking water? Not out of the whole water system of the yard and animals and all that.
A household treatment system will run somewhere between $4,000 and $10,000.
And that 10,000.
Yes, and that does not include replacement of whatever types of cartridges that come with the system. So there will be required maintenance of that system where you will need to change your cartridge out
right.
On a periodic basis and purchase new cartridges.
Okay. It is
expensive.
Follow up on that
yes.
would be if I were a water system, and I put this kind of, would that cost like triple, quadruple? Or is it possible, since all of that water would not be household use water?
So you could isolate your device and it would be smaller and therefore somewhat less expensive to just the source that you use for drinking water. You can do that.
I think she was referring to the company that provides the water being able to filter and use the UV or whatever proper filtration prior to it going to the households.
So yeah, that is likely the treatment or mitigation measure of choice, is to add treatment on to whatever existing treatment your drinking water system already has. And so those treatments, we discussed them briefly in the presentation, but that includes granular activated carbon, reverse osmosis, or use of ion exchange. So those are the three primary types of treatment that are available right now for drinking water systems to implement in order to remove PFAS.
So that's typically done at that level, then?
It is, in my opinion, so I guess, in my opinion, what will likely happen is that these small drinking water systems will have to bear the burden of this upgrade. There is, as we mentioned in the video, federal funding available to help small and large drinking water systems implement treatment. So that federal funding is coming from the bill or the IIJA Act. There's separated funding that's coming down from the federal level and is being managed by WIFA, our Water Infrastructure Finance Authority. So that WIFA is managing the federal money in the form of loans.
So if a community is tested and their water providers tested, and I imagine that you do test individual wells for PFAS as well when they send it in. So if you find that there's PFAS in a community, then you can treat it. But if there's not, let's say there's a community that doesn't have a landfill and doesn't have, for some reason, just doesn't have the PFAS in their water systems, how likely is it that it will develop now that they've kind of pulled back on manufacturing so much of it? Is it likely to develop in a community that tests free of it at this time?
That's very difficult to predict.
Okay.
One of the hard things that we're finding as we're moving through this testing phase. So one of the things that we are doing is testing all small drinking water systems in the state of Arizona. As we have moved, we're sweeping from the southern counties, moving north, trying to avoid the hot weather. What we're finding is things like East Slope Water Company, right, where the PFAS concentrations are very low. They are above the proposed MCL, but they're very, very low. And so where is that coming from? So if we look at the city itself and look for potential sources, so manufacturing facilities that may have used PFAS in its processes, we don't have a good record, right, of where AFFF may have been used to fight a petroleum-based fire. We know that it can be associated with fire training facilities and the drainage from using that fluorinated foam entering surface water and then going down into groundwater. But at these very, very, very low concentrations, what we are suspecting, and this is just speculation right now, no data, no scientific characterization has been performed yet. But what we are suspecting is that it might be coming from wastewater independent septic systems, because it's been in all of the products that are in our homes, right? And we've been eating food that has been packaged in things that contain PFAS, and it's traveling through our bodies. So it's a artifact of technology and civilization.
I don't know what to say. Thank you.
Yeah, it is hard. It's a difficult thing to think about. And that is where the term forever chemical comes from, right? Is because it's very difficult to degrade in the environment. In our bodies, we do flush it out eventually, but it's also in our built environment, so to speak.
So let me butt in here and ask this question, since you partially answered it. You said in our bodies we flush it out. You said that in the population, something like 99% of us have it in our bodies.
Yes.
So is this a specific blood test that you take, or how was that determined?
It can be tested in your blood serum.
But you have to ask for that.
Right now, the test is not commercially available. So there are not very many labs in the country that can test blood for PFAS. It's not available anywhere in Arizona. I think there are some university laboratories that can do it. I think there's a DOD laboratory or two that can do it. And then there's the Department of the CDC laboratories. And Jennifer might have more information on that. Jennifer, if you want to elaborate.
I'm certainly not trying to light a fire. I'm just saying, if it's in there, is that a problem that people are going to be thinking about? Well, should I be tested? And I wanted to make sure that they understood that you can't be, because it's not available.
It's not available, but also something to keep in mind is that there is not any reference level for a doctor to say this is too much and these are the health effects we would expect at this level. So even if you had access to a test, it may not give you the information you're looking for. So something to keep in mind, there's a agency for toxic substances and disease registry. They published a guide for clinicians. So, you know, if you're concerned about it, you can take that guide to your physician and talk through it. But one of the things they said is that, you know, some of the health effects that you might see, like preeclampsia or low birth weight or something like that, your doctor will recognize it from just seeing you, and they don't need to know that you were exposed to PFAS to be able to treat you. And if they knew you were exposed to PFAS, ATSDR is not recommending that you chase down what that exposure was and then chase down all these health effects, that they can treat you as, you know, a regular patient and just treat you for those conditions that you
So
may
you look at the symptom rather than the fact of where it came from.
Yes.
And it does sound like individuals that are concerned or maybe have health issues that they suspect come from something like that, they can put in their own filtration systems. I have 2 out of my 5 children have done that just because, well, they want to be healthy. So they've done that. And they call themselves Crunchy, just for the record. So I think that it's so available that, and if you really want to have the very clean water, at least it's very published how to do that. And then you've brought up the carbon granules
granular activated carbon.
and the UV, and there's
I
ways
think
to do that.
UV is a different, right now it's not been proven to remove some of them.
PFAS? Oh, okay.
Yes. So it would be granular activated carbon, reverse osmosis, or ion exchange.
Okay.
Well, you know, we as counties our role is what the state legislature tells us that we need to do. And I don't know, there hasn't been a role defined for us in water, in any area of water. And so, you know, while we're hosting this and wanting to know more about it, so that if people are listening or if there are going to be articles written about it, there'll be knowledge out there. But I don't see a role for the county here, do you?
I have discussed this actually with the Yavapai County Supervisor. One of the things that came up during that discussion was this idea of how do we fund connections to existing public water systems? So say we know that there's impact in drinking water that may be affecting private wells. How do we get those homeowners connected to a public water system that is providing clean water? That funding is available and it can be applied for by the county through WIFA. So that is where the connection for counties resides.
And that would only be if we determined that there was a hot spot somewhere that, you know, really the water was at unsafe levels, and we can sort of mitigate that through
And there was a public water supply nearby.
available and a
Yes,
public water supply
exactly,
available.
which is not always the case in
Exactly.
rural areas.
In a rural.
Right.
Yes. Specific
interesting.
circumstances.
Well,
Yeah, I think I'm ready to hear about the Cochise County handout that you gave us.
Okay. Let's do that. The first page talks about this 2023 drinking water system testing project, and that was what was discussed during the video. So I'm not going to go into a lot of detail on the introductory section of the fact sheet because that was in the video. At the bottom of the first page, what we're seeing is county results, right? The results for drinking water systems in the county, and those are presented in Table 1. So you can see here that systems, let's see. Okay, So the total systems that have been sampled under the 2023 drinking water system testing is 104. This is the first line in the table. Did I get that messed up? Oh, that's the total. Oh, sorry. I got that wrong. That's the total number of systems in the county. Thank you. Systems eligible for the testing were 56. So those are those systems that fall into that area of being less than 3,300 people. Systems that participated in the testing were 49. Systems with PFAS detects were 5. And then systems with PFAS detects above the EPA proposed MCLs are 2. So we kind of broke that down in a specific way in order to highlight the bigger picture. But we also provide data, right, on the last page of the fact sheet. I'd like to go over page 2 before we start talking about the data. So page 2 is wastewater and biosolids sampling. This was a sampling event that was paid for and sponsored by our surface water protection unit at ADEQ. Sampling locations in the county included City of Bisbee, San Jose Wastewater Treatment Plant, and the City of Sierra Vista Wastewater Treatment Plant. So in the effluent of the treatment plant and in the biosolids from the treatment plant, PFAS were detected. We are not providing concentrations right now because there are no limits. So the presence or absence is what we're looking for as opposed to the level itself. So City of Sierra Vista Wastewater Treatment Plant, it looks like the laboratory results are being validated right now, so we're not sharing those. We can provide an update at a later date. For federally regulated sites, we have Fort Huachuca, and then we have Apache Powder Company. So Apache Powder has not been sampled. Fort Huachuca has completed a preliminary assessment and site inspection. So that inspection was completed in February 2023. The report from that inspection has not been finalized yet, but we've seen some data from Fort Huachuca. And you can see there that it was detected in multiple media. And that they are moving on to a remedial investigation. So in the remedial investigation phase, what they will do next is expand out to find out if they can discover the sources and where high concentrations exist and where the edges of the contamination exist. So that is what is happening at Fort Huachuca right now. They're going into that remedial investigation phase. You saw a bit in the video a little bit about our AFFF Take Back and Replace program. The participating fire departments were Bisbee, Elfrida, Sunsites Pierce, and Portal Rescue. And then the gallons that were replaced were 95 gallons in Cochise County. Any questions about that page before we move on to the data?
Well, we have more fire departments than that. So is that something that was voluntary, or did you just reach out to certain ones?
I think we reached out to as many as we could, and if they wanted to participate, they let us know.
Okay.
Yeah. So Table 2. Table 2 provides the specific data from the 2 small drinking water systems that were sampled as part of the 2023 testing. There are 29 PFAS included in the analytical method. And so out of the 29, what we are showing you here are the PFAS compounds that have a proposed MCL, so a proposed maximum contaminant level. So you're seeing PFOA and PFOS in there that you heard about in the video. Those are the two PFAS compounds that have been the most studied, that have the most toxicological data, that we have the best understanding of their effects on human health. And then there are 4 others that are proposed to be regulated under the Safe Drinking Water Act and have an MCL. You can see that the electric power Apaches concentrations are at least 4 to, well, 2 to 3 magnitude higher in concentration than East Slope West, right? The East Slope West concentrations are 1 or 2 parts per trillion above the 4 part per trillion MCL. So the results are here. Do you have any questions about the data that you're seeing in the table?
This Arizona Electric Power Apache, are you considering that a water company or is it just for the power plant?
It's a small water system that provides water to its employees and for its use, for their use.
But it doesn't run out to neighbors or anything.
My understanding is no.
Oh, okay.
So just the employees are using it on site.
Yes.
Okay. And that is not to be confused with Apache Powder Company. Those
Which
are
is,
different things.
I
This is
looked them
APCO.
up. I looked them up,
Yeah.
so I could make sure that I knew they
I
were
had to
different.
take a double check look too.
Yeah.
So that is the power plant out by the Dry Lake in Wilcox. So where's East Slope Water?
So East Slope West Water Company is approximately south of Fort Huachuca. Yeah. So Sierra Vista is to the east, and then it's over to the west, right on the border edge of the base property.
Okay.
Yaqui and Ramsey Canyon.
Those are the 2 that you referred to that tested above proposed MCLs.
Correct.
Okay. You're reaching out to those communities individually as well?
We are. So in the case of East Slope West specifically, we're notifying all of the drinking water systems of their results, right? There is no requirement for the drinking water systems to notify their customers because there is no regulation in place right now for PFAS compounds. They can choose to do that, and we highly encourage them to share the testing data with their customers. In the case of East Slope Water West, that drinking water system did send their customers a letter letting them know that the PFAS concentrations were above the MCL. There was not much more information in that letter besides that, and that did raise some concern in the community. There is, I know, a community meeting that's being held at the Catholic Church within that community on June 15th. We have chosen not to attend that meeting, but we will be holding an ADEQ sponsored community meeting on July 11th.
Well, it sounds like they haven't developed enough state, the state regulatory is just not, that field is just not developed enough to support you and your efforts really, the same way as Supervisor English mentioned about the state telling us what we can and can't do. Basically, we're only allowed. It sounds like that you need some more regulatory, maybe not power, but some more support.
We say authority. And so what we are preparing for is to understand the extent of the problem in the state of Arizona, and that's why we're doing the testing, so that we can prepare for the amount of resources and capacity that will be necessary for ADEQ to help the water system and the regulated community deal with PFAS. Yeah.
Well, the next question is, we're having this work session on it. There would probably be articles written in the newspaper about it. And if people call and say, well, I have a well, how do I get it tested? What are we supposed to tell them?
Well, so private well owners, that is hard, right? That is a hard question to answer.
Right.
When we get that phone call, sometimes we refer them over to ADHS, who provides guidance for private well owners. We also have a standard work that walks through a private well owner on how to sample for PFAS, how to identify a laboratory to send that sample to. And so that standard work is on our website, and people can download it and read it, call ADHS or call ADEQ with any questions that they may have.
Okay. Just wanted to make sure there was a process in place, because we will be asked that question. If we're not asked, then they'll be asking each other. And so there needs to be a place that they can get direction.
Yeah. We should add that to our FAQs.
Well, any other comments or questions?
No further questions at this time. Thank you, Madam Chair.
I don't either. You've done great.
Thank you. Thank you for your questions and your concerns. And we're here to provide you with any help or information that we can.
Okay.
And thank you for the research that you've already done and the work that you've already done in Cochise County. So thank you for that.
You're very welcome.
Well,
There's one individual you didn't introduce. Is that your driver?
Oh my goodness. Melissa is key to
No,
our...
the young lady.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Caroline, do you want to introduce yourself? Come on up.
My second tour at ADEQ, I started back in 2014 or 2015. The agency as in the waste programs division and as a community involvement coordinator, actually, and served the state and the Department of Gaming in between, and I've been back at ADEQ since 2020.
So our PIO would then contact you for information that could be put out to the public.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thanks.
Oh, this one we know. She's always in front of us. Virtually.
That's right. Hello to those I've met and a few of you that I haven't had a chance to meet in person yet, Supervisor Crosby. But I'm Melissa Hayes and I am the Southeast Arizona Community Liaison for ADEQ. So I cover Cochise, Graham, Greenlee, and Santa Cruz counties. So I really appreciate everybody's help in getting us here today, allowing us the opportunity to speak with you all and share the information. And we're standing by in case you have additional questions that you think of afterward. You can either reach out to me and I can get them to the team, or we also have in the slides the contact person who's our PFAS guru, as they say. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Melissa. All right. I'd just like to thank everyone. And if there are no further comments, we are probably ready to adjourn the meeting. But we have this rule about saying when the next meeting is. So, our sincere appreciation to you. You traveled a long way, as we know, because we travel to Phoenix sometimes. It's a long ways to get here. Thank you. The next meeting will be held Tuesday, June 13th at 10 a.m. in the Board of Supervisors hearing room, a special meeting for the tentative budget. And this meeting is now adjourned.